Welcome back to the book of Romans. Again, I'm your teacher, Dr. Benjamin Olson. We're going to continue on with chapter 8 of the book of Romans, starting in verse 18. I believe Paul is making a transition here in his argumentation from justification, chapter 3, verse 21 through chapter 5, and then sanctification, chapters 6, 7, and then chapter 8, verses 1 through 17. And then here we're now seeing glorification. So we've seen past tense salvation from the punishment of sin in justification. Then we've seen sanctification, the present tense salvation from the power of sin in our lives. Now we can start to see the glorification, which is future tense salvation from the very presence of sin, that glorified state that we all await, for. I believe all three of these are in conjunction, that these are the salvation that is the power of God through the gospel that we see in the theme statement, for it is the power of God to salvation. Salvation having these three components of past, present, and future, or justification, sanctification, and glorification. Each of these is by grace through faith. That faith is the operator, that the non-work or the anti-work that mankind needs, faith in Jesus Christ, that will allow us to first and foremost have that accredited to us as righteousness at the beginning of the book, in chapter 3, verse 21 through 5:25. Then the sanctification, that progressive freedom from sin as a power in our life, that's deliverance from sin as a power in our life, and sanctification by grace through faith as we walk in faith and walk in the Spirit. Now we get to see future tense perfect salvation in glorification. Starting here in verse 18, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time, notice we start with the present, and then are not to be worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us, future tense, the future tense of glorification. The glory which shall be revealed in us. This is in the resurrection at the end of time. For the believer in the church age, it is the rapture, the time when we will not all sleep, but we shall all be changed, 1 Corinthians 1 Corinthians 15. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly awaits for the revealing of the sons of God. Notice he now couches it in the entire creation is awaiting for this recreation, for this resurrection and the revealing of the sons of God, the true revealing of the sons of God, i.e. the resurrection, the glorification. Notice it is the creation itself that is waiting for this, that's awaiting this redemption, this adoption. It's not just the believers, but rather the creation awaits being ruled over by resurrected, glorified saints. The earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God, i.e. Christ's second coming, and ultimately the renewal in the new earth, the new Jerusalem. Although I do believe specifically we're talking about here the earthly reign of Christ on earth, where the earth will rest during Christ's reign. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. So God subjected creation itself to futility, i.e. at the initial sin, the original sin, when Adam ate the fruit, God cursed the ground for his sake. Not willingly. In other words, the creation didn't do anything wrong. The creation didn't do anything that was instead that God himself, but because of him, God, who subjected it in hope that one day the creation would be renewed, the creation would be delivered from this present state. Verse 21, because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. When we return with Christ and we subject this world under the true reign of Jesus Christ, the creation itself will be at peace and will have glorious liberty. We see the lion laying down with, the wolf laying down with the lamb. We see the child playing with the poisonous serpent in its den. In the book of Isaiah, we see the desert blooming. We see, so during the millennial reign of Christ, this earth will go through a period of renewal. Verse 22, for we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together until now. So all of the creation is groaning, and this term groaning he's going to use several times in this passage, kind of as an alliteration for almost a rhyming scheme throughout. For the whole creation, i.e. the earth itself, the nature itself, groans and labors with birth pangs, as if a pregnant woman is waiting to give birth, i.e. to renewal, to new life, and that's ultimately what we're looking for, is that resurrection, the new life, together until now. So obviously from the time of creation, or at least the time of the fall, until today, and continuing on to today. Verse 23, not only that, but we also, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, the first fruits being the fact that it's a promise, it's an earnest, that we've been given the Spirit, even we ourselves, groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. So we've been given the Spirit. Other places Paul refers to it as an earnest, or as a guarantee of our eventual perfect deliverance or glorification. That eventually, in fact, the terms adoption and redemption here are in future tense. We're waiting for that full adoption, even though we've been legally adopted by God into the family of God. We now await the actual adoption in our resurrection. Same thing with redemption. We have been redeemed, as in purchased with a price. In fact, the redemption took place at the cross itself. But now we are awaiting the actual cashing in of that redemption in our glorified bodies. Redemption of our bodies, the reclaiming or renewal of our bodies. Verse 24, for we were saved in this hope, but hope that is seen is not hope, for why does one still hope for what one sees? So here, we're saved in this hope. We're saved past tense, justification. We're saved in this hope, as in we know that and by the way, hope here is not a wishful thinking, but rather a confident faith of the future of what's going to happen, because hope that is seen is not hope. So if we knew exactly what it was going to be, or saw the glorification today, it wouldn't truly be hope. For why does one still hope for what one sees? No, because one at that point is just confident in knowledge rather than in faith. But if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. And again, this is how our future tense salvation affects our understanding of our present tense sanctification. That we can eagerly await our resurrection in perseverance, going back to the opening statement of this paragraph, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which will be revealed in us. That's the whole point here, that Paul is not just simply bringing up the glorification or future tense salvation as a matter of theology, or just simply a matter of just teaching us about that yes, that will happen. He's bringing this to us so that we will understand, so that the believer will understand that our future tense glorification is a means of motivation for present day living, understanding that these present trials, tribulations, sufferings that we go through only bring about perseverance as we hope for that which is not seen, i.e. the resurrection, i.e. the future. Verse 26, likewise the Spirit also helps in our weaknesses, for we do not know what we should even pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself makes intercession for us. Notice here he's talking about praying for what we ought, and I still think he's talking about future, that there's something in the future that we're waiting for. We don't know what the oughtness ought to be. What should it be? Sometimes we don't even know what to pray for. Should I pray for this outcome or that outcome? I don't even know what God's ultimate desire is. So there's times when we find ourselves, and I love how Paul uses this idea that the Spirit is helping us in our weakness. What is our weakness? We can't see the future, but the Spirit can. For we do not know what we should pray for as we ought to pray. I don't know what the outcome I should pray for in this is. Should I pray that this happened or that happened? But the Spirit himself makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And I love how he couches this in terms of the same groanings that we see earlier in the passage, referring to the groanings of creation. That creation itself groans in anticipation of redemption and renewal. The Spirit is currently groaning in that there is a privation of what ought to be in the resurrection, and we're now living through this and looking forward to and anticipating in hope, though we can't see it. The Holy Spirit comes alongside and prays for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And I want to address this very quickly. Not going to dwell on it too much. Notice it says cannot be uttered. This is not a statement about tongues. There's nothing about tongues in this passage. There's nothing that Paul is indicating here. Tongues is nowhere related to this passage at all. This is not a secret prayer language that you might have in your closet or whatever. There's nothing in this passage about this at all. In fact, it's all about simply when you don't know what to pray for because you don't know the future, because that's what this is all about, the future. My weakness is that I cannot see the future. I'm mortal. I can only see the present, and I can look back to the past. And so the Spirit himself makes intercession for us, and with groanings which cannot be uttered. When you don't know what to pray for, rest on, walk in faith in the Spirit, allow him to pray on your behalf. Now he who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Spirit is, i.e. he, God, understands what the mind of the Spirit is, because he makes intercession for the saints according to the will of God. And that's the best way to pray, is in the power of the Spirit, allowing the Spirit to pray for you. Again, not in some kind of ecstatic utterance, but just simply in silence. Sometimes it's best to just allow the Spirit to guide you in prayer, to make intercession for the saints, because he knows the will of God. He knows the future. He knows what ought to be. I'm going to end the video here because we've got a really big passage coming up in verses 28 through 30, and I want to spend a lot of time on that passage.